Welcome to Mitchell Elf. Our theme this year is Adaptations, and this unit is Beaks, Feet, and Feathers, and this is Center 3, Fill the Bill. In Center 3, there are two bins. One bin is full of books and background information sheets. These wonderful color illustrations of different birds eating and what their beaks look like and their bills look like. And another bin that is full of the materials that you're going to need for this center. What is not included in this center is a whole bunch of items that you're going to use to represent the various foods that birds eat. So if you notice in the outline, it says volunteers partway down on the right hand side, and it says foods in various containers, example gummy worms and oatmeal and puffed rice and sunflower seeds, popcorn, mini marshmallows. Once you read through the outline and you get an idea of what you're going to be doing, you can always welcome to adapt and use stuff, and then feel free to share it with the group so that people can borrow your wonderful ideas. So the objective of this center is for students to learn about beak adaptations by comparing how well different shaped utensils work to pick up different foods. Like it says in the outline, this center involves some planning ahead and volunteer supplied materials. You will need an assortment of bird foods in different containers. What you're going to do ahead of time is set up 4 to 8 stations at a large table on a plastic tablecloth. So included in the bins are a couple plastic tablecloths. I realize that they might get kind of gross after a while, and you may need to leave them out to dry rather than tucking them straight back into the bin. So please email us if you feel like we need to replace them. You're going to take that plastic tablecloth and you're going to lay it underneath all the items on the table, or if you choose to spread it out on the floor, you could do that too on the plastic tablecloth. Each station is going to represent a different food that some birds might eat. There's a Fill the Bill activity page that we have in this center, and it explains what each station represents. I believe that's this. And so I'll read a little bit from it in a little bit, but this will give you some background information on what the different utensils represent and what you're trying to do. You're basically using these utensils to simulate the 5 different types of bills, and we did a little bit of this in Center 4 last go around in terms of animals being able to pick up different foods with different shapes of beaks. So we have a large syringe that's supposed to simulate a hummingbird going in for nectar, and so you would fill this thing of water up, and I'll get to that part in a second. We have a slotted spoon, we have a strainer, some chopsticks, pliers, tweezers, and a whole other container full of other various scooping and grasping utensils that all represent what different kinds of shapes of bird beaks. So on your outline there's a list of things you're going to need to do. You're going to need to put water in the tall jar, and again that simulates nectar in a flower. You're going to need to have a bowl with either these snakes or gummy worms if you want, kind of mixed in some oatmeal or some cornmeal so that they're buried, and the beak utensil has to go digging for them. Nuts and sunflower seeds on a plate. When you do that one, please be careful to check with the classroom teacher to make sure that there aren't any nut or seed allergies. If there are, you could easily substitute something like popcorn. Then you'll need to bring in some floating styrofoam pieces and put those, I don't have an example of that, and some water in one of these little buckets, but you need them floating. And puffed rice could be floating in there. The styrofoam pieces represent aquatic animals, and the puffed rice, which is much smaller hopefully than the floating styrofoam pieces, will represent tiny aquatic plants that, like ducks, will go looking for. You could throw popped popcorn, not unpopped popcorn, or mini marshmallows in the air to act like flying insects that whippoorwills might catch. And then rice or pasta on a log. I'm still looking for a log, but we'll have that, to represent insects. And things like tweezers would be good for picking that up. You're not telling the kids this ahead of time. And then if you feel super adventurous and you're really super organized, you can get some cherries or something else with a stem that you could hang on a string. Maybe off, like in between two chairs, you could set up a string that runs between them and hang something off of there to represent fruit on a branch. So that's a long-winded explanation, but you need the different examples of different simulations of food so that this activity will work, because what you're going to do is then you're going to give each student a different utensil and tell them that this is their beak. If you have more students than you have utensils, then you can either double up on utensils, or you could substitute things like toothpicks or clothespins. Before you start, you're going to ask students to predict which foods they'll be able to pick up the most easily with their beaks. So I would give each student one of their utensils and then go around the circle and say, what foods do you think you'd be able to pick up if this was your beak? Which would be the hardest? Which would be the easiest? And ask them to try to explain to you why. Then, in whatever organized or semi-unorganized fashion that you want to do it, you're going to have students use their utensils to go around to each of the stations and try picking things up. At each station, you'll want to put one of these station signs. On one side it says what it's supposed to simulate, and on the other side it tells you what to do and what is the utensil that's being simulated. You don't want this side up. You only want the side up that says what the pretend item is. So let the students try, kind of go around the table in a circle, is how I would set it up, and give them each a chance to try things out. And with older students, you can follow this fill the bill outline and demonstration if you'd like to read this ahead of time and have them be a little bit more scientific and experimental with what they do. I'm going to leave that up to you guys to read ahead of time if you'd like to. And so I would just let the kids experiment with the different beaks, and then afterwards, after they've tested the beak food combinations, you can turn over the cards and relate the utensils to the item that it picked up. So maybe the kid with the strainer did have the best luck picking up the puffed rice, because the strainer is going to have a lot smaller holes than a slotted spoon. I might get a different slotted spoon here. And talk about why that is, and you could also go on to talk about whether or not more types of birds can live in an environment if they eat different foods. And the answer would be yes, and that's part of the adaptations piece of this center, that you need a variety. If all the birds had the same kind of beak, then they would all have to eat the same kind of food, and then you would run out of that food and you wouldn't have enough diversity in the environment, and some birds would not live any longer. So again, it talks in the outline that if you have a specialized beak, then a bird can often eat a particular kind of food that no other birds eat, but that also can cause problems if that specific food is not available. So Birds like crows that have a generalized beak are more versatile and more easily, they can more easily modify their diet if something becomes scarce. So this center is, I would start out with just some discussion and tips on and brainstorming on what they think they're going to pick up with the utensils, and then move on to the experiment phase, and then wrap up with a discussion of why they think their utensil was good at picking up some items and not so good at picking up other items. Please do the best job that you can to clean up everything and dry everything off. On the outline, it also suggests you bring in a towel or some paper towels to dry things. If you don't dry things and they sit in here wet with food, like oatmeal, half wet, stuck to it, the next group that comes is going to end up with a smelly, smoldering mess. So please, oh please, plan on spending some extra time cleaning this center up. Plan on asking some of the other volunteers to help you stick around and clean it up as well. If you have any questions, you can email us at mitchellelf@gmail.com, and have fun. Thank you.